Welcome everyone to Studio Visit with Raven, episode 10. I'm here with Ben Skaar, artist and, photographer who I really admire and has been just releasing some great work on the blockchain, off the blockchain, everywhere in between, world traveler, and just all around great guy. Welcome to the podcast. Happy to be here. First time in my house in Massachusetts. This is not a, AI. We don't have a green screen. This isn't some sort of high-tech thing. I'm actually here with Ben, and he is sitting next to me, and we are in my basement.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you, Raven. It's awesome to just, we're not too far apart from each other. I feel like I think you were talking to my brother Brett, who Yes.
and it came through the grapevine to me that you grew up in the next town over, pretty much.
Yeah, like 10, 15
literally
minutes
the next
away.
town over. Yeah,
pretty crazy.
That kind of came through, and we kind of were talking on Twitter and stuff, and we said, let's do this in person. Like, I never done it in person before. Come on over when you're back from school, and let's do it.
When I do a podcast, I'd much rather look at the person in the face than through a computer screen.
100%, yeah, and yeah. So this is awesome. Thanks for coming by, and I'm looking forward to having this chat.
Yeah, we just spent some time setting up this professional lighting. It feels
exactly
super.
Ben helped and was a good podcast guest. Now I won't do that to every guest, but because you are a photographer and you know a little bit about this stuff,
you had to test me.
I brought you in and you helped me set up the set.
All right, yeah. Let's see what this kid's all about.
Yeah, exactly. So I put you to work a little bit, and you helped out. This is a one-man show over here, and we don't have a crew standing behind the camera. It's just two guys in a room in a basement, and
as a podcast goes.
Yeah, exactly. And with a little bit better lighting than was here maybe even an hour ago, or a little bit more than that maybe.
The lights look good.
Looks great. So I'm excited to be here. I think let's start out where I start, with all the guests I have on the podcast, and just talk to me a little bit about maybe like you're a young guy, but like maybe when did you first like getting a sense that you wanted to be an artist or you wanted to do creative things? Like, was that early on? Was it more recently? Like when did you have your first memory of kind of maybe saying, hey, I want to create things. I want to put things out into the world, different things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's always been in me. Like even since I was a child, my parents were very encouraging of me creating. They would give me art supplies and tons of paper, and I was just constantly scribbling on my school papers, doodling. Mom used to send my drawings to my grandmother in the mail with little notes, and I discovered one recently where she noted that I was like making like 20 drawings a day, just like meticulously whatever I was thinking about or observing. And I think that transferred a lot to like in my teenage years when I like got my first smartphone. I kind of saw it as like a tool to document life with the camera. So like just my adventures, just screwing around with my friends in the forests, biking around. I always just liked to document what we were doing to look back on. And then like kind of what I was talking to you about, like as time goes on, you have like this just abundance of pictures, and you start to realize that there are some that are better than others. And you maybe ponder why that might be. Is it the lighting, the composition? Is it just the subject matter? And that, like, I've always kind of had a desire to improve. So I think that like artistic capability like really shined, where I wanted to take the pictures that I was using to document life, and I wanted them to be better. I wanted them to represent the moment more, and how I was feeling in that. And so, it was around like 13 or 14 where photography took off for me as like my main medium. I spent like all my allowance money that I had saved up from chores and stuff to buy a camera drone when I was like 13, $500. It was like the biggest thing I'd ever bought, and I was broke after that. My parents were like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Like as a dad, he's like, with kids growing up, it's like you're like adolescent child says they want to spend all their money on this one random thing, and you're like, you're probably cautioning them.
Yes.
But my parents are like, all right, yeah, do whatever you want. And so I bought it, and I just biked around with it. I took a bunch of pictures wherever I was going, sharing them on Instagram, kind of struck an audience there, which were really supportive. And I got
when did you move? Because you're in Massachusetts now, like I am. Were you in Massachusetts doing that at that point?
I was in Massachusetts from like age 1 to 19.
Okay.
So recently started university, which puts me more in New York City than Massachusetts nowadays. But my family still lives here.
Yeah.
So this is still home to me.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful area for photography. Like all the little woods trails.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got the Seasons is really big in New England. We got, and I know you've been to a lot of different places in New England. I've seen some shots on Nantucket that you put out. That some beautiful.
I think I've touched pretty much every corner of the Northeast at this point because it's an excuse to go somewhere and create and take pictures. And I also like to see new places and get a feel for them. So been everywhere from Nantucket to up to the border of Canada. With like Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire. And then all the way down into the sea with Rhode Island,
definitely where I grew up. Yeah, my homeland.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful state. Love Newport. And those areas for like the lighthouses and the rocky beaches. Beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. It's awesome down there, and just like I like being in Massachusetts, but there is some things I miss about Rhode Island as well. Like it's
not too far away though.
Yeah, exactly. We go down there a lot. Like my parents are still down there, and it's not too far from here to shoot down there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really cool. I think, when did you start? Because the one thing when I think of your work, it's a lot of travel. Like you really capture in your work a sense of otherness. Like, and I don't know if that's on purpose or if it's subconscious or something, but the sense I get looking at your work is like almost I'm in a different world, right? And
thank you.
It feels surreal almost in a lot of your photographs and things like that, and almost cinematic in a way.
Yeah. So thank you, man. I feel like the travel really picked up as I grew a following on Instagram and later on like TikTok for a brief while. I feel as I was able to share my work on there and it got more exposure. There were some brands and some clients that like saw it and saw an opportunity for me to collaborate with them, which was super exciting for me to kind of have these opportunities because of my creations. It was around, I guess, like just around the COVID time, which wasn't really ideal, to be honest, that I started to travel and get out. I had traveled previously with my family, just, on the occasional vacation with them, and I would bring my photography stuff. But like a really memorable initial trip was to Europe in 2021. A few photography friends and I road tripped from Zurich, Switzerland, to the Italian Dolomites. And that was a trip that really introduced me to like much larger landscapes than I was used to create my work in. The type of work that you referenced that I try to create is really grounded in feeling, like how a place or like what emotion the place evokes in me. And these are kind of, the pictures are my own little worlds. So the fact that you felt like you're being transported into something new means a lot to me, because I'm really trying to create something that is surreal. It is kind of a representation of a feeling. More so, I couldn't really care less about, I guess it's a factor, but I don't really care for representing a place how it is. I feel like there's realists with photography and painting and other mediums, and they care about the direct representation of what the eye sees. But for me, it's so much more from what's within. So the photo that I capture in a place is kind of just my canvas. It starts as the base layer, and then I'm taking it to the computer. I'm processing colors and elements of it to recreate like a mental model of almost like I'm reminiscing the place through the computer, and then sharing that with people to kind of spark something. I really enjoy getting feedback when somebody looks at a photo of mine and it gives them like a certain feeling that I had in that place. Because I feel like being able to travel to these places is a very fortunate and somewhat privileged thing to be able to do at times. So I really like to be able to share the feeling from these corners of the earth that are like, you know, not everybody's going to get to go to. It's a very cool opportunity to have to visit these places, and it's something I'm like really grateful for.
Yeah, I can totally see that, and like, you know, it's really cool what you said about taking it and, you know, just rolling, like kind of when you're like kind of viewing it like a canvas. I really liked how you put that, like how you're taking a picture and then you're later almost in post processing, like recreating the feeling you almost had, or that place that what feeling did you're thinking back, like, okay, what did I feel in that moment when I was taking this picture? Or what did that place make me feel? And then kind of infusing that emotion into kind of that final piece that you're creating.
Yeah. I feel like photography is such an interesting medium, especially like landscape and travel photography, which is my niche, because the canvas is largely predetermined. It's the world that's in front of you, but you can kind of direct that canvas by choosing a certain time of day to shoot in, or a certain angle, or just the location itself. Like those are choices. But then what you're doing is you're curating a moment in time to press that shutter at a certain place from a certain angle. And for me, that process has been semi-frustrating because I've always kind of wanted to create from scratch, whereas photography, a lot of it is already given. But the way that I kind of grapple with it is I have the given attributes, which are like make up what's in the photo itself. And then I think the fun for me starts when I get back to my laptop and I make it my own, because that's another thing that's really important for me, is like I want the photo to look like someone can look at it and say, oh yeah, Ben Skaar made that, because it's my touch in like the after process that's really making it my own and like unique. I want it to like separate from others, because art is such is an extension of you. And if the stuff that I'm creating doesn't represent me and it's not like individualistic, then I feel like I'm failing to some extent. I really want it to be harmonious with myself. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's so important to highlight, especially for people that are, you know, maybe just getting in, becoming artists, or just, you know I struggle with that. Like when I was first starting to create art and things like that, especially releasing it publicly, you know, that's a whole nother thing.
Did you feel a need to like differentiate from others?
For sure. Yeah. And I think I still am driven by that. I think, you know, I want to do things that are novel, that feel, I'm driven by doing things that push the limits, you know what I mean? And if everyone's doing something that's, you know, I usually at that point thinking of another spin, because like I don't want to say art is saying things, right? Like that's what it is. You're communicating, and
you're expressing yourself.
If you're saying something that's already been said, it's not as compelling, right?
I mean, it's very hard to say something that hasn't been said.
Yeah,
truly. I mean,
that's
like,
true.
If you look back at history, thousands of years of humanity, it's like, how can you really make something unique? But I think there's possibilities to create like a factor of uniqueness. And if you look at like the best artists in our space and outside, they are the ones where you can look at one of their works and you can immediately tell it's them. It's unique to them. Maybe not unique as a whole, but there's some like sense of separation, and that's something I strive for. Because I don't know, just it's the idea of having something that's recognizably mine. Because art is like so personal. It's like I want it to feel like it's in my control to some extent.
That goes back to, you know, like I've talked to other artists on this podcast and things like that. And I think it's a ever evolving question of, when you're creating art, do you lean into that of creating art that kind of has that your signature, you know, like do you have a signature in art? Like, you know, I think of just Rothko, who I'm really a big fan of. Like you can totally look at Rothko and you can say like, oh, it's not for every one of his art. He did do some things that are very different than his color field painting, which is what everyone knows, but still he has that signature. A lot of these artists, you know, you can look at any of their works and you can say this so-and-so did it. And there's something pretty compelling about that. I think it also, I think the reason that you can do that also leads to why we talk about those artists, because like it's almost marketing, right?
Yeah,
like
consistency is really valued in the art world. And unfortunately, the market that we have currently doesn't really value experimentation as heavily, because it is outside the realm of recognizing like that artist.
I got you.
Totally, whatever the word is.
Sounded right.
But yeah, it's something like that. But it's frustrating because I think experimentation is such a core part of an artistic process, but it's not rewarded. So, which is why I like respect artists that are experimenting so heavily, because those are the ones that are going to go the extra mile. They're going to strike something that is special to them. Like the artists that aren't evolving their styles, or I think they're stagnant, and I think that they're eventually going to diminish. But it's kind of like a longer term thinking to kind of find something that is so unique to you. Takes a lot of iteration. And the artists that are, you know, just they find something that they're comfortable with and they just go with that. It's sad, because I feel art is just something that you always have to be iterating on. And if you just stay in one place, you lose the momentum. But on the vice versa, like financially, it's more rewarding to stay in your box and create something that people know you for. So that's why I respect them so much, is because they know that, okay, this is kind of like a risk to take this experimentation, but they know it's what they have to do. It's like, as an artist, you have this compulsion to just reimagine yourself. And
I wonder too, like,
about that a lot.
You know, I wonder too as well, like if, you know, some of these artists that have a really signature style, do they feel though that like in their style, they're still able to, like they're still, you know, even though they're in their style, they feel like they are, they have like variation, motifs, right? Like, which is interesting.
If I look at that, like Grant Young is an amazing artist and friend, and he has that kind of neo-impressionist style that he's defined for himself with like the geometric shapes, but he's still, over the years, like watching his progression has been really fantastic about how he's able to get more technical with the shapes and the colors that he uses. And even within those confines, he's been able to break outside the mold with different subject matters. And people can still recognize it's him making it. But it still shows that he's thinking about evolving. And, you know, maybe he'll get to a point where what he's making is completely unrecognizable from what he was making 5 years ago. And I think that would be brilliant. I like to watch people evolve. It's one of my favorite things about art.
Cool. No, that's awesome. I think Grant's work is amazing as well.
Big fan.
You know, I think my favorite work by him is just
check out Grant.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't checked out Grant and you're listening to this podcast, definitely check him out. Of course, you know that X copy all-time high in what is it in the city? But like then his version was with the gondola, and
it's brilliant. Yeah,
that's one of probably my favorite piece by him. Like really, that's just genius. The coloring, the everything, he just nailed that piece, and like that's probably my favorite by him if I had to pick one.
It's hard to, you know, it's hard to, but like that, I don't know, and it's even a derivative, but it's still like just such a good derivative, and it's in his style that it's like, dude, I think derivative, I mean everything is a derivative. Everything's a Ponzi, everything's derivative. of something. Truly in this space, like the Web3 space, I think derivatives are so special because it's like a compounding of culture. To have something that Xcopy created that's so iconic that people feel the need to apply their own style
Definitely.
and iterate on it, I think is such a testament to him and the nature of this space of how we're constantly building on top of other things that people have created. It's just like a big hive.
That's interesting. I'd like to get your thoughts. Like we segue on that because that's kind of it. You know, this whole CC0 debate, right? Yeah. And you knew I was going to tell it on your face, you know.
I'm ready for it. It's fine.
I think it's like maybe this is art adjacent, but I think it's something that's just you know, in the space is worth talking about is like on that is that you're right. Derivatives are a big part of the art in this space and crypto art. Then you also have this, you know, aspect of, you know, people backlash for derivative work and for, you know, making your work CC0 where, you know, anybody can then use that, you know, if they collect your piece or not for, you know, commercial purposes or not, which Grant, you know, he's released an Xcopy. All their work is CC0. Anybody can remix it and sell it and do whatever they want with it, you know, and I don't think they've gotten as much backlash on that because it's more on I think the PFP side that has gotten the backlash on that point of it. But what do you think on that? Like, I don't know if there's any, you know, like that whole debate, like, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's like a case by case basis, truly, on like an artist or a company, whether they should do CC0, because it really like boils down to IP. It's
also different too. I think like it's very different. I think sometimes we just bunch like companies and like artists together. Yeah. Like in some, especially like, which is not necessarily like the same, right? Like Grant and Xcopy doing CC0 work is like very different than like, you know, Moonbirds, for example, or like, you know, other or Nouns or kind of some of these other ones. That is. Or Squiggles aren't CC0. They're you know, have the NFT license, but still like some of these Squiggles is more of like obviously an art project. It's different. I don't think it's. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I don't think it's equal to just bunch all these type of different things together, right?
Yeah, I mean that's why I say it's like a case by case thing because there's no really answer that fits all. With artists, I'm a fan of the CC0 model. For those who don't know, it's like, you know, releasing the rights and IP to your work to the public for them to build on it or create their own iterations. The thing is with companies is that IP is like one of the most valuable things that you can have. It's like you got to protect that so that it's looked at more as like, you know, an asset of yours that.
And those people that are collecting, kind of joining almost those membership communities, right? It's
something they place a lot of value on.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily, they're not necessarily only buying it for the art in those cases. Like it's with the exception maybe, you know, CryptoPunks, but I would make the argument for that people are just like satisfied with only the art. But I haven't seen that with kind of some
CryptoPunks are an outlier for sure. But with art, I think it's a fantastic opportunity to really broaden your impact and your reach. I think going CC0 for Grant and Xcopy and others has been a fantastic decision. It's given others kind of the green light to take inspiration from their work and use it in their own pieces. And it pays dividends back to them because there are new people that find out about them through other artists creating with their work. And yeah, so for me, I haven't really gone the CC0 path because I haven't really felt like a desire to release my creations to public domain. But it's something that I can imagine if I have a larger body of work in the future that I would do. I think that's another component of it is that like still the amount of work that I've released and created is still so small in comparison to these other artists. I'm still only like a few years into like my art journey. Yeah. Where it's like I would want to build a foundation where I have something that's like a little more solid before I even considered releasing to CC0, because there's just not a point. There's people that release to CC0 where I'm like, okay, there was no really reason for you to do that. But there's others where it makes a lot of sense, and I'm kind of in the first bucket.
Yeah, I don't release in CC0 mainly because I just want. I guess I have when I'm creating my art, like I have a very specific vision of what I want that art to be.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I am okay with like people remixing it, because like I just put a lot of effort into being it the way it is, like, you know, and I really enjoy it the way that
I feel that comes on like a commercial level. Like I'm a little traumatized from like brands and companies using my work without consent. And,
did that happen?
Yeah, I've had. I've had experiences with companies.
That's
like
crazy.
Stealing my work to use in their campaigns.
Wow.
Through Instagram, and it's always been really frustrating because, of course, you can take the legal route because I have copyright over all the stuff that I'm making, but it's just such a hassle.
Yeah.
That like, it's not that I view other artists as like these massive corporate entities, but it's just I'm cognizant of the work that I'm creating. I want it to be used for the purposes that I intend, and that is not always the case when you release it to CC0. And if you're giving up the rights to your stuff, and like I said earlier, art for me is very personal. I like to have control over it.
Yeah.
So of the stuff that I'm making, and that it kind of goes against that. Maybe my thought process will change, but for right now, my art is mine. People, I think, enjoy it for that. They know it for me. If I wanted to have a more communal approach to it, then I'd shift. But it's still very interpersonal for me.
Cool. Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I want to go back to kind of the travel aspect of it. Like you have traveled all these different places. What's like the craziest place that you've traveled to that you think is like, what's your favorite place that you've been to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm biased. So my last name Skaar is Norwegian. My dad grew up in Norway, immigrated here, met my mom in the States. So I was born in the States. But my family and I would return to Norway every couple of years to see family up there. And I truly believe that Norway is the most incredible place that I've visited. It's why I go back time and time again. Up there, the fjords, the air, the mountains and valleys, all of the coastal life and the people. It's really, honestly, when I was like 13 and I started taking photography more seriously, it came after a trip to Norway where I recognized that this country was so incredible that I felt compelled to document and capture it and then share that with other people. Like if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of my Instagram, the first pictures are from Norway. They're really shitty. Like I didn't do a good job, but it was that country that really like sparked the realization to share. And so like a recent kind of big step in my life was getting my Norwegian citizenship. Yeah. Because I really have a strong correlation with that country. And this summer, we'll be spending a couple months there because in order to retain that citizenship that I got, I have to spend like 6 months there before I turn 22. And I'm really excited because I'm gonna work in a little hotel B&B up in the north of Norway.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really...
You gonna take the train up there?
No, you fly. So
you fly
to Oslo, and then it's like another, which is the capital of Norway, and then it's like another 3-hour flight north. Okay. So it's the middle of nowhere, but it's
I asked the train because it's funny, like the, no, I haven't listened to it in a while, but like I don't know if I know my wife definitely like listened to it, and I don't know. I definitely did it once, but like the sleep stories on Calm.
Oh,
and
yeah.
There's one like called something Night Train, and it's about Norway. And there's
a really cool rail system that I'd love to explore in Norway. I haven't done it yet.
yeah, it talks about it, and like it's like a story you're supposed to like go to sleep to, but it's basically talking about this. I forget the town that it goes to, but it's like this night train that goes, all the way up north.
Narvik?
It's not Narvik. It's something else.
Narvik is where my dad grew up, and there's a lot of trains go to there.
Maybe that's a stop on the way, but like there is one that's like the end of the line. That's the part of this Nordic night train.
Yeah.
And I wish I could remember it off the top of my head, but it's really describes like it seems like a beautiful country
really
with the fjords and all these like as you're going north, and it starts to get more rural as you're going up there and things
Definitely.
like that, which is really cool.
It's such a fantastic country, and like I get to the point where I'm like, oh my god, I'm like a Norwegian propagandist because I can't stop talking about it, and I feel like I should shut up. But it's like,
no, it's cool.
Yeah, I encourage so many people to go because there's something about, especially in the work that I create, about like a large landscapes and being a small person that really I feel like puts the world into perspective for me. Norway is a place that I go to reflect and be very introspective in these large, broad landscapes, redefine my own life. Like I'm really excited to go there this summer, outside work, just to kind of hike around and do some thinking about, what's next for me. Entering like a pretty critical period in my life, like my early 20s. Yeah. I would like to have, somewhat of an idea of what that looks like for me. And, post-college, post-university, what am I going to do? Where's my art going to take me? And Norway has always been a place that I go to think. So I really enjoy it for that. But I mean, outside Norway, there's so many other places that I could list. In Europe, mostly, I haven't gotten the chance to go anywhere farther east yet. I would love to, touch down in Asia at some point, or in my early 20s, spend some time there.
Yeah.
One little piece of information about me is that I worked in a sushi restaurant for 3 years.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You heard it first, people.
Yeah, there you go.
You're going to ask Ben. Now you're going to be asked for the omakase, like when you
trivia.
If you show up tomorrow for this year,
okay.
You got to bring.
I'll try my best.
You got to source some.
Bring my knives.
Yeah, bring your knives. You got to source some fish down there. I don't know how. That's going to be a challenge. And
down in the desert.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna have to make us all some sushi. But now you just sign yourself up.
Damn. Japan has been high on my bucket list for years, just because I got really indoctrinated into like the Japanese.
Yeah,
culture.
I've never been there. I totally want to go to Japan. Like it's
for photography,
it's awesome.
For just I think the lifestyle,
culture, like everything. Yeah,
that they have is so like. Photography is kind of an excuse for me to go to these new places as well. And because I'm really passionate about just like, okay, we get this like one life on this planet. I really would love to explore it as much as I can and see all the nooks and crannies. And then, share that with other people. Like that's something I'm super passionate about. It's just telling these stories and these adventures. And I feel like Japan is just so... I can't really speak on it because I don't have any experience there, but from what I've learned and studied, it's just, especially coming from the U.S., it's such a shift I think it would be really inspiring to see how they go about their lives in the different regions, like from Kyoto to Tokyo, and just also see firsthand what the chefs were telling me about in the back of the kitchen.
Yeah, it's like I always admire their culture, like of how, because I'm just so nerdy, like, and I get so in the details, and like Japanese culture is very much detailed oriented. Like they're very much like, they take care. They really, the details matter.
Their animation, their
everything,
food, their architecture is really,
they really think through the process of things, and like the process is important, and tradition and all these type of things, which is really cool to me. and something that I really like to experience firsthand for sure.
Yeah, I was talking to a girl from Japan recently, and she was kind of explaining the system of honor that they have as well, which is super interesting to me. Like the family bonds that stay so strong in Japan compared to, like, I feel like Western life. It's like apples and oranges, but it's just something I would like to experience and document at one point in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many other places that I'd love to visit, but good thing is you got time to hopefully get back onto these places. Just looking forward to seeing where that brings me. I feel like right now the two pillars of my life are art and adventure. Those are two things that I feel really strongly about. And
they're interrelated, right? Like,
yeah.
Like you are going to these places and that's inspiring your art in the photography that you're
so awesome.
Doing. Yeah.
Like it's like peanut butter and jelly. They go together. And you
can't have one without the other, right?
Yeah,
like that's. I mean, you probably could go places, but it wouldn't be the same. You're going there, and then you're documenting it, and you're getting to like take that snapshot of that feeling that you had in that moment. It's
hard for me to go anywhere and not like have my camera. And
and it seems like you know, looking at your stuff and also and like reading some of the things you put up on your website and stuff. That documentary aspect seems important to you as well. Like
I think so, yeah.
You seem very conscious of that. You are still young, but like you want to have these memories and document them. So when you are older, like I am, and in my now going on my second half of my 30s, like you can look back and you will have like maybe you will be in a different part of life, but you'll have these memories, and I think you're very conscious of that.
I love the idea of having like an archive of memories to look back on. I think this is like largely inspired. I don't know if the name Casey Neistat rings any bells to you.
Yes.
Like his system of like a daily vlog for 2 years, so intense. Like it's like almost inhuman, the fact that he was able to put out like a 10-minute video of his life every single day.
I know, and it's just I want to like how much time does he spend editing? Like I don't know. Like his it's not like his videos are like
that it was
thrown together.
Yeah, they're very cinematic.
It's like they're well edited. Like it's not like it's just like a quick cut, you know?
Yeah, it was enough that it was affecting his marriage.
Oh yeah.
But the idea of like him being able to go back to a specific day and time and relive it through that is, I don't know if he does that, but to me that idea is so fascinating that on like maybe a more achievable scale, that's something that I would like to be able to do. And photography to me is like a time capsule. Like one series that I do that's like more broad through like Manifold and a smart contract that I have is called Annual Editions. And so each birthday of mine, August 11th, each year, I release an edition where the supply for that edition corresponds with the age that I was at. So like when I turned 19, I released an edition of 19 at 0.19 ETH. And that was for my 19th year of life. And then I turned 20 last August. I turned 21 this August. So I'll do 21 editions at 0.21. And the photo that I choose for that edition is one I feel symbolizes that past year of life. The description outlines a bunch of like achievements and maybe even like struggles that I had that year. So I can look back at these editions that I released, like on chain. They have the timestamp.
Yeah.
The holders are people that collected it on that day. So it's like a very shared thing. And then I think right now, I mean, there's only like 2 pieces in the series. They're releasing the third because it's only something that happens once a year.
Yeah.
But this is something I plan to do for the rest of my life. Like, up to the point, I don't know where technology will get us, but hopefully I hit 100 one day.
Yeah.
And there's like 100 editions on that release.
That'd
and I
be
can
cool.
go back and see what each year represented for me, how I reflected on that. And so that idea of just capturing the moment in the year, the day down to the second with a camera snap, that is so pivotal to me. Yeah, it's really,
so
really
cool.
important.
Like, and that's something that I think it's just the blockchain has just allowed, which is amazing about it. It's just to have this provenance and, you have this whole system that is is built to just withstand the test of time, right?
And it's like self-sovereign. Like one gripe that I've had with Instagram is like, okay, I can essentially replicate that system that I'm doing on Instagram with like a post and a description, but it's owned by them.
Yeah.
I'm just a user.
Meta has that in there, and if they go under, like, there's no like nothing guaranteeing that that's gonna stay
if
up
Instagram
there.
goes down, then all that is lost. But what's so great about the immutability and the permanence of the blockchain is that these memories, unless there's like a solar storm,
exactly,
are there.
It would have to knock out every hard drive and all these type of things.
It would be impressive. At that point, we have bigger worries. And like, I'm not so worried about my memories as I am about just anarchy. So I'm at that point it's
it's amazing. I think of that the same way. I think it's that this is going to stick around. I think like especially now that I have children and stuff like that, I think like, preserving
their early lives,
preserving their early lives, but also my own life. Like, is something that, my grandfather's not here anymore, but he was an artist, and I really love having his work and things like that. But like I have some of his work, but I don't have all, like no one has all of his work. Cause like, it gets lost over time, and things like that. And it's, you try to preserve it, but you have to preserve it in like, a closet or a box or something like that. It's, things can happen. Like,
as a father, I'm sure you're thinking about this for your kids too. It's like, when they're older, they would probably like to have stuff that they can look back on.
Exactly. That's what I think of. And like, it's something when I'm not here anymore, they can look and they'll always be my art. It brings me great joy that my art and what I was feeling in that moment is on the blockchain, and something that they can look back and have that of me, when I'm not here anymore, when that eventually is it. And they can look back and they can remember me and also have a piece of my heart, that it's on the blockchain.
That's beautiful.
Which is my art. So, which will live on past me. So that's something that's just so beautiful about the blockchain to me. And it's something that, can't be understated, that I think it's a really big innovation, and why I love to release things on chain, because I think that permanence of it and, is amazing. And it's something that's we never have had before, know?
Absolutely. The idea of tokenized digital asset that is non-fungible it's like revolutionary.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, talk about, and just the way I look at art, like, talk about people wanting to like freeze themselves and things like that. Like, I feel like just art, like to me, of what you were saying earlier, it's like my art, and like is me, you know what I mean? It's part of me in a moment in time. Like it's an emotion, something like that. It's something I'm creating that's coming out of my consciousness at, the state that it's in when I'm creating it. And I think it's, again, like it's a beautiful thing. It's almost like that, you're not freezing yourself in time, like, like Ted Williams or anything like that, but like yourself, like you're freezing a piece of yourself in time in your art. And it's a snapshot of that. And to be able to have those and collect those, even before, the blockchain, it's just the art is in general, but having the permanence of being on the blockchain is just another level of that, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's. I feel like it's really unfortunate that we have like I feel like there's like a stigma nowadays with like the term like NFTs, blockchain. When you like try to talk to people that like don't really know these things or don't have a familiarity.
Oh yeah, no, it's I think that's well, that's why I did the show. That's why I'm doing the show, because I think
to educate,
and I think having yourself and other artists on that and having real conversations and talk about art, that this is the blockchain, NFTs, even though these are just a piece of technology, I think eventually we won't use the term NFT, just like we don't use HTTP like on the internet, right? It would just be that would be the technology layer, and that will kind of meld into the background. But these digital assets will just be ubiquitous, and everyone will own them in some way or another, but and it will just be another art form. But I think there is so much almost negativity about the whole crypto space and
absolutely.
And some of it's deserving. I'm not saying it's not, there's a lot of scams and things like that you really have to watch out for. And there's a lot of, good and bad, right?
But that's like with every industry. There's corners of it that are like, they don't represent the industry as a whole. But I feel like the way that it's been portrayed so far, a lot of people just have that association with like crypto as just like, illegal activity and scams. Whereas I feel like there's so many broader applications within the art sphere, within so many other things that
finance, everything.
Pretty much. So like I am in university right now, and like there's like times where I'll try to, talk to a friend about it. And I think it's really interesting to see how they perceive it and how I can maybe, not like change their mind necessarily, but help them see what I see in it. Because truly it's changed my life in many ways.
Definitely.
And how I think about things.
Yeah.
So I try to encourage others to be open-minded to these new technologies, because it's like you keep an open mind or you get left behind.
Exactly. And I think one of the things that happened for me recently was a moment like that is shout out to Biggie Poppins, who, is a collector of mine, and he collected my first super rare piece recently. Oh, awesome, and he's kind of the host of NFT Live, which is kind of a daily show they do, or one of the hosts. And he invited me on there to I revealed the piece to him because he won the piece through, I did this ongoing project called Dots. And you can actually, with Dots, you can collect these individual dots, and the first kind of derivative, if you want to call it that, project that I did with Artblock's engine is called composites, where you can pass these dots into this secondary project and mint these composites that then take the actual dots, which are on-chain generative art, and you can make like almost grids of these dots, and you can then burn that composite and get the dots back out. So it's like kind of
an exchange.
Yeah, it's like they're almost like art currency in a way. You can pass them around, and what dots you pass in affect the character of the mint of that secondary experience. I'm calling them experiences. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it was a cool project. And one of the things I offered was that the person that made the largest, passed the most dots into a composite, would win my Super Genesis piece, airdropped. So I never did anything on Super. Yeah. So Biggie Poppins won that. He made the largest composite. And then I went on and I presented him with it, and it's called Soul. And I showed it to you before we went on here, and I showed it to him. He starts crying on air, and it was like, I didn't expect it at all. Like, and it was beautiful. So like, it was moving to him. I don't know why. I don't know. It hit. But he started crying on air, which made me cry. Yeah. And it was just such a moment. And I think we were even talking about it as like, on air, we, like after that happened, is like, folks, like, for all the people that say that crypto's only scams and nefarious activity, like, watch this clip, like, this is real stuff going on, right?
Yeah, I've had a few moments like that and gotten to witness a few, and every single time it just reinstates like why I love this space so much. It's like, it's just so much opportunity to connect. I feel like it breaks down a lot of the barriers that you have with like the more traditional art world, where it's harder to maybe discuss with like-minded people. If anything, I feel like if there's any barrier that gets diminished, it's like the barrier for discourse, so that people can connect over certain things that they're looking at. Whereas like before that, you would have to maybe go to like a museum or an auction house. Now you can just do it online. Like you can share that love.
Yeah, the community aspect of it, like, that's never happened, I feel like, in the history of art, is something that people don't talk about as much of, like, I don't think we realize is that, like, there is, like, such a community around NFT art and all these stuff that didn't exist, doesn't really exist in other art forms or traditional art forms. It's not like, you know, certain collectors of certain, you know, that are getting together, having like,
it's very unique,
you know, like, or having a Discord, you know, they can talk to each other all the time. Like, you know, this doesn't happen. Like, yeah, art collectors get together, I'm sure, in groups, small groups, but not at the scale of like what has happened in the crypto art space.
I think,
and with events and things like that.
The energy of it is super encapturing. And I think there's been a similar energy in other art movements like street art in New York and the 80s and 90s was a big one that reminds me. Honestly, it kind of is. But you think like
even in that case though, I think like, yeah, the artists were like in that community, but I don't know if the collectors were like you talk about Andy Warhol's factory and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, like, yeah, there was a community of artists, but I don't know if there was like a community that included collectors and artists involved, like together at events and things like that, where that kind of thing. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think maybe the period that I like most would love to see Web3 resemble is like early hip hop. Yeah, I would love to see it take that route where it's just there's the producers, there's the artists, there's the labels, and they all kind of culminate into a new kind of cultural revolution. With new ownership principles. Like, this is something I've been thinking about, like writing a paper on, or like the parallels between hip hop and digital art.
How is school, like, you know, in New York and things like that? Like, have you like brought your art or in the NFT stuff like into your classes, like, or into your work that you're doing for school? Like,
yeah. So school for me, like, I think a lot of people might think that I go to school for photography. In reality, I try to keep my photography very separate from my schooling. I like that to be something that I build on my own. So I go to NYU in Manhattan, which was like my first choice school coming out of high school. I was super stoked to get in there because it was really the only school I wanted to go to. I wanted to be in New York. I wanted to be in a city where everything's happening.
Yes.
It's like, you know, art mecca, and there's a bunch
everything
of
mecca.
Yeah, like tech, fashion, art, all the above. And so I knew I wanted to place myself there. And so when I came to NYU, I really was focused on areas of study that I didn't feel as capable of teaching myself. And I also wanted to be surrounded by like-minded kids that were, you know, ambitious and passionate about their subject matter, so that I could, like, you know, provide my energy and feel their energy as well. And so for my course of study, it's kind of under the line of digital media and business. I'm at a very unique program at NYU, which allows us to create a very flexible major and graduate with something that's called an individualized major. It's very really cool. Yeah, it feels like how I want my college experience to be. It doesn't necessarily follow like a course track. I work with like professors and advisors to pull together classes from a lot of different schools under what's called a concentration, which would be digital media and business. And it's been super, it's like everything that I really hoped for. Like, I can take everything from like an art history class to like a fintech class. Like, next semester I'm taking a class on like science and religion.
That's awesome.
It's really just like stretching the brain, meeting people that I wouldn't meet otherwise. And NYU is also a very forward-thinking institution. Like, this past semester, I took a technical blockchain class in the Stern Business School, which is like super unique to NYU. Like, a lot of other schools are not teaching like crypto and blockchain at this point, but it helped me like understand more like Solidity and hash functions and like the nitty gritty. Yeah. Which was like super eye opening as like an artist that largely works just on the UI field. Yeah. And so if anything, NYU for me is just like an opportunity to expand my horizons while living in the greatest city on earth. Yeah. And like the art world is there. LA. Sorry, LA. It's true. I've been to both. New York has my heart. And it's, it's just every day there's something new to do, to a point where I get a little run down because you have to learn to say no to things. Like,
oh yeah,
there's like events.
I don't. We didn't talk
everything.
about this, but I worked in New York for.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So my wife.
So
my wife Jess is from Long Island, and I moved there. I was in Long Island for a while. We met at Rhode Island, University of Rhode Island, and then
URI. Nice.
Yeah, and we did the long distance thing for a little while, and then she gave me the ultimatum and said, "You have to move to New York, or else we're done." So I was like, "All right, I'm moving, honey."
Yeah.
Yep. So
love it.
Yeah. So I moved, and it was like one of the best things I did, and
It's pretty cool there, man.
And it was my first job, like really. Because I went to school for economics and I taught myself how to code and things like that. And my first kind of coding job was in Manhattan in Soho.
Yeah,
and
love it.
At a little small agency and called Maui, New York. Shout out to Phil and Alexandra, who they still run. They're in LA. Yeah. And they 2 weeks after I got a junior like programmer job there, we got Beyonce as a client, and we had
Queen Bee.
Yeah, Queen Bee, exactly. We had I think it was like 6 people in the company, and we had to deliver her site, and it was crazy.
Yeah,
it was wild.
What an experience!
It was a crazy experience, and we released it from her.
And this is like early mid-20s.
Yeah. And
what
it was exactly, and. Yeah,
feel like you're on top of the
it
world.
was her like self-titled album release, and we had to sign NDAs because we knew about it before. It was like that surprise one that I don't know if you remember it, probably not, but the
big deal though.
It was a big deal, and it was a surprise one where she just released it on iTunes, didn't no one knew about it, and then it just was like surprise, it's a new album. And we had to sign NDAs saying we wouldn't reveal that because we had to build the site and everything leading up to it.
What an experience. Wow.
It was awesome. Yeah. It was a crazy first gig for sure. Definitely in over my head,
but you learned,
which was awesome. We definitely learned, and it set me up for success, but being in New York, it's such a cool city. I remember
it's where
working
I be for my early 20s.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. And I remember working on that project, and then I remember we were doing these late nights, trying to hack this thing together, and then we're talking about going to Cronuts. Is Cronuts still a thing?
Cronuts is around.
Yeah. That line that's and I remember we went there, and we were up all night working on this site, and we're okay, we're gonna try to go get Cronuts.
Yeah.
And it was 4 a.m. and we still went there, and at 4 a.m. the line was still around the block. They open at 6 a.m. And I was like, what? Is that still happening there?
I don't know if it's as
that's insane.
In demand.
I was this is we still didn't get, I still have not had a Cronut. Anybody out there, feel free to ship me a Cronut.
Yeah.
I will take a Cronut.
Next time I'm down there.
Yeah. Get me a Cronut. I need to try one and to see if it's really up to the
Raven's heart.
Yeah, if it's up to because it just now it's such a curiosity to me. What is it really that good that people are waiting hours and hours and hours for a croissant donut? I don't know if it lives up to the hype. I need to find out. Yeah, part of me, I don't know.
I'm skeptical.
Yeah, I am as well, but I don't know. There's got to be a reason for it. I don't know.
There's all sorts of new trends that pop up in the city that produce crazy lines. You try to time it so that you don't hit it when the hype is crazy.
And I was I remember I worked in Soho right next to the Apple store down there. That was another thing, and it was during Apple's heyday. And that was another line that was iPhone release day went entirely around that block.
Wow.
It was insane.
iPhone release day used to be a spectacle.
Oh yeah. It was people were camping out overnight, and that had the huge line, and I just remember every time they would do a release, we'd walk out, or I'd be going into, and it would be insane. There'd be people just camping out all night, and it'd be around the block from that Soho Apple store, and stuff like that, which was really cool. But
I'm trying
New
to think
York
how we
is so
can
cool.
Produce more of those moments, where you, the last thing I can think of was Pokemon Go.
Yeah,
was another one of those things,
which I still play, by the way.
I love.
I got back into Pokemon Go recently. I was talking to. I told you that I recently found my binder for when I was 11, and I was super into Pokemon. I've said this before, so I haven't said it on this podcast, but the first thing I ever sold, created, like, as far as like entrepreneurship goes, the first thing I ever sold was Pokemon. Like, it was actually
Mine was
digital
sneakers. I did sneakers.
It was actually a digital asset because back in it must have been 1999 where the Game Boy came out.
Oh yeah.
And Pokemon was huge. And, I obviously was into it, the trading card game, but also the Game Boy game, and played through that. And the one thing I got, which, I don't know if my grandmother got me it, was a Game Shark. Oh. And Game Shark was like a way to kind of hack the game, and you would insert it into the Game Boy, and then you put the cartridge in like the other side of it.
Yeah.
And it would basically allow you to, like, you can get any Pokemon and pretty like much, put any move on it.
I remember a friend who had one of those. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, so I got that, and the first thing I ever sold was that to the neighborhood kids in the neighborhood. I started like selling like 50 cents for Pokemon.
Yeah.
And like, you get a Mew stats, or whatever. Yeah. And people want a Mew. So they would give me 50 cents and say, hey, come over here.
Yeah. There you go.
I'd give them a Mew.
Young hustler.
And and then like they would, we do the street deal right there. And I would give them the Mew with the link cable, give them that digital asset. Innocent. And,
I love it though.
And that was the first thing I sold. And it took me a while to like, maybe last year or something, I realized, I said, wait a second, like that was pretty much an NFT I sold, like a first thing, like back in 99, 2000, whatever it was.
You were so early.
Yeah. It was crazy. Like,
that's hilarious.
Well, again, the Japanese, they're always ahead of things, like maybe a little bit too far ahead, but I feel like they were onto that with the link cable. They also had, which I found out recently with the Pokemon, is there's these e-cards, which are cool, like, which happened in the early 2000s, where they actually had for Game Boy an e-reader where it didn't really sell well, but it was a cartridge, you put it in, and then it had a swipe on it. And they sold Pokemon cards that had like barcodes on them that you could have swiped, and you unlock things in the game.
Damn.
Like,
so it was a digital unlockable.
Yeah, exactly. And you'd buy packs, and then you could get them, and you unlock things in the game by swiping like Pokemon cards.
Yeah, this goes back to our conversation about, like nothing we do is like really that unique.
Yeah.
It's just like a reimagination of something that was previously done. Like we think like digital unlockables, NFTs now are like they're all the rage, like with like fashion and stuff.
Yeah, we're talking about pudgy penguins and all this type of stuff like that. Like
it's been around.
Like it like that seems like it's in the same vein, right? Of like you're buying something physical to unlock something digital, and like or like get something digital, which is like in that same vein. I thought it was like really cool that there is that parallel, which is pretty awesome. But
man, Pokemon,
Pokemon, gotta catch them all, folks.
Oh my god, can you imagine what like a killing if like 2021 NFT heyday if they released like a collection of
they missed their mark
if they did like a 1 of 1 for like
the
Charizard.
Pokemon company, like they missed their mark on that one. Can you imagine if they released Pokemon NFT version like in 2021?
Millions of dollars. Like
if everyone could just have minted Pokemon and then battled them on chain,
they would have made so much money. It would have been sickening. I mean, that's what Pixelmon tried to do.
Yeah.
And now there's like people buying like ENS domains that are Pokemon, but it's just like it's not the same.
They missed out. If they made like an on-chain version of Pokemon like in 2021,
it would have been a gross amount of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like because it's the thing that I also think about is like the target audience for NFT collectors are people that grew up with like Pokemon, RuneScape, all these other digital collectible games. So if they have the opportunity to own Charizard, like they're going all in.
I saw like some market research on so this is like I think it's the thing is on the art side I think it's more diverse. Yeah. Of course, like I think which I think is really great. Like I think there's a lot of different people that are collecting art on the art side, but on the overall NFT space, like which is, let's be frank, mostly like degens, you know what I mean, is like most of the volume.
Degenerate gamblers.
Yes, exactly.
Myself included.
Yep. So, I mean, the overlap there apparently with the market research is sneakers, which clearly you're
I had that pipeline.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then also sports gambling.
Yep.
Which is the other
DFS for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
those are the two like biggest predictor that someone is going to be into NFTs. This was a little bit
The
dated.
trifecta.
Maybe that's not as much right now, but that was the market research.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But I hope that changes. I hope it's like becomes. I think with the art spaces, I think people are in, like
tech,
in tech and things like that. I think people. I hope that the tech becomes more accessible and gets abstracted out of the kind of picture, and you have more people coming in, and you don't have like such a barrier to entry, which is right now of like making a wallet, seed phrase, all these type of things. Like I think we're gonna get there.
That's gonna be a thing that has to change. It's like people have to use the technology without even knowing they're using it. Is what's gonna have to happen, I think. Yeah, so it's gonna require like a big lift on, I think, the UI sort of things, like where people don't have to like make a MetaMask or
I think that's coming for sure. Like I know like Floor is like, I know the founders from Floor, and I think they're doing a lot of cool stuff with.
I have to check it out.
You don't the Floor app?
No, Floor app.
Yeah, it's cool. It's right now like for everybody that's on there, it's just everybody can have access to like the token tracking, and like it will track all your NFTs and things like that. And you just kind of and you also, the one thing is like I think is cool is like the mobile minting. They have mobile minting there, like for example, like Dots is on there. Like you can go buy Dots and use Apple Pay or Android Pay.
Oh, I like that.
And when you pay with fiat, we pay with dollars, it's like $7 I think on there. It like fluctuates depending on the ETH price, but you can just pay with credit card. It will go in the back end automatically, go to Arbitrum, which Dots is on, and mint it. And because it's backed by Artblock's engine, it obviously all those in my Dots project is like generated on Mint, right? Because it's generative art that's like, that randomness gets passed in, and you get a unique dot like that sent to any wallet you want on there. And it will airdrop it to that wallet. And it's completely
all new to me.
Done with, you can use credit card to do it and just through your phone, an app on your phone.
Yeah, that's another thing is that I feel like to make these truly accessible, like people shouldn't have to own crypto.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's what, so that's like everybody now, but they also have this, which I haven't even got into, like Christine, if you're watching, please, like, why am I not in the wallet beta? I don't know. Like how am I not?
Get them on.
Come on.
Let's go.
But they have their own wallet now, which is,
nice.
Basically instead of having to have a wallet, it will create one for you when you're like minting. So you can mint to your Floor wallet, and it basically, you don't have to even deal with any of that.
Yeah, one experience I had like that was in the MoMA lobby for like the last year and a half. There was an installation by Rafiq Anadol called Unsupervised, and actually by like the information, there was a QR code that you could scan to like launch an app called, like, I think it was like Autonomy or something, another like mobile wallet application that would create a wallet for you.
Cool.
On the and then you'd get an NFT saying that you had been there. It was crazy because I think that installation got like, I don't know, millions of visitors.
Yeah.
And I think there were only like 5,000 NFTs minted.
That's crazy.
Like all you had to do was scan a QR code and take a couple extra steps, but shows you where we are percentage wise of people that
I think people don't understand. I think this still has to be a lot of education and
yeah, because it's basically like just like a little memorabilia.
Yeah.
A memento would be the better word. To show that you were there for it.
Yeah. Which is cool.
Yeah.
Like again, like, and then it's like there is a huge market for souvenirs, I think. So I
Absolutely.
think, but I think people just don't know what they are. I don't think they know like how it works. I think
digital souvenirs are going to have a lot of value in the future.
Yeah. Like I think, every time you go to a concert, sports, game, something like that, like you should be getting some sort of NFT.
Yeah. That's why I love POAPs.
Yeah.
The proof of attendance protocol. For those that aren't familiar, it's a little thing that you just tap with your NFC chip in your phone, and you get just a little digital token. And I think that there's going to be value to that one day.
Yeah,
whenever
for sure.
it is. Yeah.
Cool. I think that's awesome. Like, I think I'm just excited of where we're going with everything, and it's going to take some time, but I think we'll get there for sure. So that's cool.
It was really exciting to hear your insight on all of that.
Yeah. I think the one thing you said, like when we started this conversation that was cool, is just like, I did like how, we were talking about your schooling and stuff like that. Like how, that I didn't even know like that existed. Like what you said of like
It's
being
like
able to
NYU and
almost
Brown.
create your own, like,
Yeah.
I actually did hear Brown did that as well, which is cool.
Those are like the only two schools.
Which is so
but I didn't
awesome
want to go to
because the thing is that that's so awesome about that, which I just like, I think struggle with like going to school and stuff, is just like we just have like there's so much emphasis on specialization,
Yeah.
you know, like that when historically it wasn't like that. Like I think on last podcast I was talking about, you know, Leonardo da Vinci, like, you know, like
He was a man who did everything.
exactly. Like, and it didn't have any problem with that, you know? And I think like you were saying, like you're taking courses in all these areas that maybe like traditionally people wouldn't think they would be related. Right.
Yeah. I think so it's called Gallatin is the program that I'm in. My dad was the one that recommended it to me, and I like just saw it and clicked immediately. And it's only about 400 kids out of like NYU's like 40,000. So it's basically like a liberal arts school within NYU, but I can still get all the classes from wherever I want to go. I think it's great for somebody who either has a broad idea of what they want to do and narrow down, or somebody who already has a very specific idea of what they want to do. Like their idea doesn't fit into like I don't know, like a business track or like an arts track, but they want to do business and art. And so they are taking both without like a minor major situation. So I fell in love with the education style of that. And truly it was like the only school I envisioned myself going to. Like if I didn't go here to NYU, I just wouldn't have gone to college.
And do you have to present like projects of like,
yes.
Is it kind of like project based?
Well, so I mean, you're taking normal classes that have like exams and papers, but there's stuff outside the classrooms as well. So like 2 years in, you submit what's called like an IAPC, which is like a basically like stating your major. But like it's like the classes you've taken so far and the classes you plan to take and your idea of what it is that you're studying. Like you have to have some sort of culminative idea. And then at the end of your 4 years, you have what's called a colloquium, which is like a 3-hour session with 2 professors that are assigned to you and 1 professor if you're choosing, that you basically explain it to it. You have to have like a thesis. It's like you're going to grad school and you explain your thesis. And you basically have like a debate on your subject matter. So mine's likely going to fall into some sort of intersection of like digital art, blockchain, fintech, somewhere around there. I still have a little time to figure that out. But I feel pretty well prepared to present and speak on that. And then, we'll see where it goes post-grad, but I would really love to find some sort of position in the arts, in a creative field, maybe dabble a little in finance. But the goal is to continue supporting myself, to make my own art with the resources that NYU provides me. I've just met so many incredible students through NYU. It's really just an incredible university experience that I'm really grateful to have from the money that crypto has made, and my parents as well. Super, super grateful for them. To just be in New York, to have this experience in my early 20s. It's really special. Yeah,
it's awesome. It's so cool. One thing I wanted to ask you about is I want to talk about Lucy. Yeah.
My
and
bread and butter.
I think this is like something that happened recently for you. Like,
relatively.
It was definitely a surprise. I think maybe just tell that story of how did you like enter that whole contest, and now you're on the council, right? I am.
Crazy to every time somebody says that, I'm like, what? No, I can't be. But I am. It's really exciting. So for those who aren't familiar, the council and Lucy art projects by Sam Spratt, who's an incredible digital artist in our space, really acclaimed in the commercial.
I'd love to have him on. Definitely.
Yeah.
I'll definitely reach out to him and try to get him on this for season 2 at least.
That would be awesome.
He'd be a great guest.
Yeah, he's a fantastic speaker, way better than I can articulate things, that's for sure. But I fell in love with Sam's work and kind of his meticulous detail and the lore that he was creating around Lucy, which is kind of his ancient hominid project about human values and finding a way out from rupture and thinking. And that was super, kind of struck a chord with me in like a time where I'm figuring myself out. And I kind of looked to Lucy and his work as like guidance, for sure. And Sam himself has become quite a bit of a mentor to me and my way of thinking. But one of the components to Lucy is these 50 skulls that he rewarded the initial bidders with, of like the first 3 pieces that he released in 2021, which I wasn't around for. And the skulls, or I was around for those auctions, but I wasn't paying attention enough to know to bid, or to even have the ETH to bid on his work, because it was way out of my price range. And the skulls themselves were quickly out of my price range as well. So I thought, probably won't have the opportunity to join. But I still reached out to Sam at that time because there was one skull I had my eyes on, out of the 50 that had these autumnal leaves, which I felt were really representative of I was drawn to them because of my love for autumn from the Northeast.
Yeah.
I was like, Sam, if there's any way I can ever, get my hands on this and support Lucy, I would love to. And he said that he had an intention with it for the future, but he wouldn't compromise on that. It was just the way that things were going to go. And then came this past August, Sam released a piece called Monument Game, which was incredible high fidelity artwork that like Sam had worked for pretty much 3 years on, I think it was. But it was also a competition where 256 players could leave observations on top of the painting, leaving a piece of themselves or observing something within the painting. And then 3 of those observations would be selected to win a skull by the existing council, who are incredible, esteemed digital art collectors in the space. And I really...
Artists too.
Yeah, artists, collectors, people from all over. And it's just an incredible batch of humans that I've gotten to know. But I had very low expectations. I just put... my thought process with the observation that I put was very similar to what I discussed with you earlier about just like, it's like a time capsule. It reflected myself in the moment of that observation. And I think that resonated with the council. I put it on this boy sitting by the campfire in the middle of the painting, looking at the mask. Seems a little confused, but the mask is giving him something to focus on, which felt symbolic of how I was drawn to Lucy. And so I reflected on that. And I think that resonated with the council enough to place me in that final 3. And what's really special is that Sam recently debuted Monument Game and the rest of Lucy in Venice. Yeah. Which I flew out to see because I knew I had to be there for that moment for him. And in Venice, they implemented the same system where people were again able to leave observations in person in a like this dark room with the painting. It was super mystical.
Was it the same painting or was it
same painting?
Nice.
But this was like another chapter of observations. But I took the opportunity to place yet another observation on the same boy, in the same spot that I left that initial observation, this time reflecting on where I was then in Venice. Yeah. And what it meant to me. And I told this to Sam, but my thought process going forward is to wherever Monument Game goes, I will go to leave an observation in the same place as a mirror for myself.
Awesome.
So Lucy is something that I advocate many people to look deeper into. I think Sam is a wonderful human being, a really talented artist, and for lack of a better word, genius when it comes to creating lore and educating people on maybe how to, maximize this little life that we have. He's given me some great advice, and I owe him a lot. So I really want people to understand Lucy and to see it how I see it.
That's awesome. And it's so cool that you kind of, out of that whole painting that's so detailed, you like identified this one boy and identified like yourself with it, and still do.
I saw myself. The painting is like, it's massive. It's like 30,000 pixels, but I've scoured every pixel of Sam's work, finding hidden details and hidden languages that he's referenced, and all of that, because that's something I just enjoy to do. And I knew very early on, once I discovered that this guy, that he was the one that I would choose to represent me.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's amazing to see the, that you won that skull, use it as your PFP, which is awesome.
It's one of the things.
It was a great story, it was very public, kind of, that whole process. And I think a lot of eyes were on it and read your observation.
It was terrifying, man. I was so scared, but it really worked out, and feel very.
And it's again, like
grateful.
It's what Sam did with that is again, like this thing of the blockchain, this community aspect of it. And,
Sam illustrates it beautifully.
The ability to use the blockchain as a medium. And that's something that I'm really interested in as well, is not just having I think one thing, like, there is a static image is cool, like, and that's definitely fine. Like, but, I think it's cool when artists use the medium, the blockchain, to do things that like only the blockchain could do, which is add this element. What Sam did is and like Jack Butcher and, some of these artists are basically adding, like, using the blockchain as a medium. So it's like,
absolutely. I agree.
And it's like, making art that's interactive and, reframes the artist and collector dynamic. Right. And, makes the piece that's not only visual, but is interactive in a way. And that's part of the work as well. Right. Of that, of between the artist and collector, which is really interesting to me. It's it's a co-creation. I definitely think this vein, like QQL with, like Tyler Hobbs.
Yeah, he did a great job
Dandelion, same thing, where it's like you have that collaboration between the collector.
It's stuff that wasn't previously possible so easily.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what the blockchain is enabled. Another thing that it enables is that, collaboration of having a wallet and being able to sign something and, make an observation that on the blockchain on something, and it's different, than what was possible before. Yeah.
It's something the traditional art world hasn't really seen.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Yeah. No, that's awesome. And Venice seemed like a cool city.
Magical. Like I missed a week of school for it, but it was so entirely worth it to go there for the debut of Lucy, for the Biennale, for Bright Moments, for just all the amazing people that just descended on this like cultural capital of the world. Venice is just, it's such a like ancient city for like its port and also like its art culture. That it felt like I needed to go because, it's facing like the global warming challenges with like rising oceans, and who knows how much longer it will be able to sustain its current state. So I felt really compelled to go. I had made some meme coin profits that I was like, okay, nice. This is enough to justify the trip. And yeah, what an incredible week. Got to stay with my good friend Defaced, Kane. We got a hotel together and just kind of wandered with friends around this fairy tale land for a week. Pizza, wine, pasta, the whole shebang.
That's awesome. It was crazy for me too. Like, I did the project Color Streams with Bright Moments. So it was great to, be part of that Bright Moment story. Also, like someone sent me a picture of, Color Streams on display there.
Nice.
So that was really cool to just see that. And, Bright Moments, I just think is such a what they did, what they're
It was an
hopefully
accomplishment. Yeah.
what they're doing. You know, hopefully it continues in some form. But I think
love
it's
Seth.
Yeah, Seth is awesome. Phil is awesome. Everybody over there is awesome. Keith, who one of my good friends who I've knew before this whole space is Keith. I don't know if you know Keith.
Yeah.
But Future.
Yeah.
And he actually went to school with my wife, like in Long Island, and
small world.
Yeah, I knew him from that, and no, I think I've talked about this. Like I called him, I got him into NFTs because I called him of all days. I called him the morning of Fidenza launch, and said, "Hey, you need to look at this, and maybe you want to mint this," and he minted it. Wow. So that was a good call.
Nice going. Yeah. Why didn't I get this phone call? Yeah, what the hell?
Yeah, so that was his first NFT that he minted, and he got into it at that point, and he's a great friend of mine, you know, outside of all this, and to continue to have him in this space and to, you know, just continue that friendship and have somebody to talk to that talks the lingo and knows what's going on has been awesome.
Yeah, it's great to have somebody like that.
Yeah,
it's hard to find.
Exactly. But Bright Moments is like, I just, you know, I think that the fact that they actually ran it like an actual DAO, which was very rare. I don't know if anybody else has done that, where it's like, no, like actually there is no, like, you know, like we're really gonna, like, the crypto citizens are like the equity in the company.
Pretty awesome.
Like, and really running it like that. When they took VC investment, from what I understand, the VCs got, Fred Wilson got crypto citizens, like, you know, where, you know, all the other companies that have taken VC funding is obviously like this separate, you know, thing where you have the kind of the token holders, which are almost, it feels like they're the consumers, you know, and then you have kind of the.
I think it's nice to have them all under the same.
Yeah,
umbrella.
Exactly. It's completely aligned, and I really respect them for so much for keeping that and really like enjoy like you know, just keeping that decentralized spirit of Web3 in this whole space, like, and sticking to it and really doing something so cool for art and generative art in particular, but then moving beyond generative art and doing all kinds of other art that they released in person, fantastic. And creating an experience between, you know, the collector and, you know, the artist, live minting. All this stuff is like, they invented it, and it's so cool. And I'm so glad that it went really well, and they got through the cities. And, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing what does Bright Moments like turn into, you know what I mean? What is it going to be in the future?
We'll see where it goes from here. Lots to look forward to.
Definitely. But I think it's super cool. Yeah. But anyways, man, got anything else you want to talk about? What?
I don't think so, man. Is there anything coming up in your world that you're excited about?
I don't know. Like, I think it's I'm doing this podcast. I really like this podcast.
I'm excited to see how this evolves.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think I may take a break and do some art, like, soon. Take the summer off. Nice. But definitely already thinking about, you know, maybe in the fall, season 2.
Yeah.
And I want to open it up to beyond artists. I want to kind of bring in more curators and collectors.
Love it.
And start talking to that on that front. I think they have, you know, a lot of pretty good curators that have done in traditional art world and things like that have come over to this space. I'd be curious to see their thoughts on that, and, like, you know, how they think of curating work from NFTs. And I think we still are developing how to put on a show and how to display these works and things like that. Is still, like, really early in the development of that. So I'm super excited about that. I'll definitely be continuing to make art and putting stuff out there. But, you know, right now I'm having a lot of fun doing this stuff.
It's been a pleasure to join you for season 1.
Yeah. And what about you? What are you going to be putting? Are you going to think you're just going to be doing any other, do you have any plans for releases soon?
Yeah, I have one project that I've been working on since last May. It's my first ever short film.
Oh, wow.
That I'm producing with Samsung. This has been something I've been keeping under wraps mostly, but it's a little story about me and my dad going to Iceland that we did last summer. Kind of a father-son story. And hopefully we'll be releasing that sometime this summer.
That'd be awesome.
The launch has kept getting pushed back just due to logistics, but that's a little alpha for the listeners. Little something on Solana. The film itself will be an NFT.
That's so cool that you get to do that with your dad. That's cool.
Yeah, it was really...
It's going to be cool. I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, I'm excited I'll give you a sneak peek.
Awesome.
But it's one of my proudest accomplishments for sure. And so that I have the edition in August that'll come out. I got, I'm headed to Norway for 2 months. So I'll be making a lot of art there. That's for sure. A lot of hiking. And then, back to school in the fall.
Awesome. Yeah. We got to, and hopefully you can make it tomorrow for this year. We'll see.
I would love to. We'll see if my schedule lines up. If not, I'll be there in spirit.
Definitely. For sure.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Ben, for tuning in, and thanks for everybody for listening and watching. This has been Studio Visit with Raven, with Ben Skaar. Had a great time in my basement, live, first time. My wife's not going to let us keep all this up.
Gonna have to break it down.
So gonna have to break it down and recreate it if I have another guest here. But I need to take pictures to figure, because we can't redo we need to keep it the same way.
Absolutely.
Maybe minus the flickering lights. Let's just,
we'll keep the lights on.
We were kind of not mentioning that was happening because I bought some lights.
Well, hopefully
overnight.
most people are just listening to this.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But there was some flickering lights, but it is what it is. That's what we do. We roll with it. We didn't miss a beat.
I don't think so.
We kept talking, and
take care,
it's been
guys.
Awesome. Take care. Thank you for watching. And we'll be back soon with another great guest. So thanks, Ben. Take care.
Thank you, Raven.
All right. Bye, everyone.